Hey out there, this is Friday, September 1st, 2017. And it's about, I guess pretty close to 3 minutes past 10 in the morning here in Northern California. Had a lot going on this past week with the hurricane and consequential flooding in Houston, Texas, and the surrounding area. And what comes to mind is a piece I saw recently on the CBS Sunday Morning. Well, I don't watch a lot of mainstream media, as little as possible. But some of the stuff on that CBS Sunday Morning, it's they run it so early that a lot of people miss it if you don't DVR it or VCR it, or something. But I typically will tape it because I don't always get up that early, so especially on Sunday morning, right? But anyhow, they had a piece in this on the CBS Sunday Morning on the Netherlands, where they've got perpetual high water and low land, and I think some of that stuff would be very helpful for the Houstonians to adopt, because you're just going to have to get used to it. So what you do is essentially you have to provide for that water, provide a place. So you could dig out a lake conceivably. I mean, that's just one of many ideas. And of course, houses could be raised up, find out what the high water mark was, and go up a couple of feet from there. It might be inconvenient for handicapped people, but there's things you can do to accommodate that too. But it's catastrophic. It's very tragic. It's very difficult for all these people that are involved. And I don't know what it's like. I've never been flooded, but one can imagine that it's very disquieting, to say the least. That not to mention your life in danger and the lives of your loved ones and all that sort of thing. But it's very troubling indeed. And I think it's times like this that God is trying to speak to all of us and get us to understand that, your welfare is my welfare is your welfare, that we are inextricably interconnected, and we are, whether we like it or not, one big family. So in that sense, a collective. And I see the division that's being fostered in our culture, in our society here, especially in America. I'm speaking of, like, with this Tifa thing and the white supremacist thing. All this nonsense is just maddening to me. But I see what's going on here, and it's time for those good patriotic Americans that really think America represents excellence, and then we need to do that. We need to actually realize what that means in dealing with the opposition. And fundamentally, we have to respect each other. I think that's probably the biggest take that anybody can get from what I'm trying to convey. And that is just, look, if you think about people in the right way, and the right way is God's way, then you will have the right spirit, the right attitude when it comes to dealing with difficult people. And difficult people are sometimes, who knows what's going on. I mean, they could be demon possessed. When you're right, you're absolutely right. You're the one being reasonable, and everybody that that's in their right mind, of sound mind, would agree that you just want to have a conversation, an intellectual discussion based on logic and truth and facts and all this sort of thing. With being willing to do the math, in other words, as an allegory. And then these people will hiss and be just filled with vitriol, and it's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow. And sometimes they act violently even. So they're intimidating. It is like a domestic terrorist situation, what we got going on here. And nobody is blameless. We're all in this thing together. It's just like the Houstonians. We're all flood victims, or we're potential flood victims, to say the least, right? Any one of us could lose all our stuff at any time from some natural disaster or a man-made disaster. I mean, we just don't ever know what the hell's coming around the corner for any of us. And I think that's what, God is trying to talk to us and wake us up any way possible here. We've got to get it together. And we have to be available for people to explain stuff to them in concise, coherent, logical terms that is palatable, okay, that they can handle. It's got to be with that attitude, that spirit. It can't be one of teasing and taunting and berating, belittling other people, regardless of how much you perceive that they deserve it. I mean, venting frustrations, I understand. I mean, I'm not sitting here as Mr. Perfect that never loses it. I mean, anybody that's watched me knows that I tend to rant, and I can cuss, and I don't really like it. But I mean, these are the feelings that are honestly induced within me, within my members, and I know a lot of people too. It's this indignation. It's not a fun state of affairs for somebody in their right mind that doesn't care about being right, but just cares about fixing problems. Just let's get it together, man. Let's see through the lies and deceit of the money masters of misery, these madmen that just, that's who's running our lives. That's who's running the policies we live under. They say, well, we can't give adequate flood protection. We can't build safer roads. We can't do a lot of things because of money, right? Everything comes down to money in our society, in our civilization, in our culture. More and more and more. This is what's been weighing on me virtually my whole life. And from a very young age, I was traumatized with the assassination of a beloved American president. And I think everybody knows who I'm talking about, JFK. And to this day, I don't give a crap if he called himself a Democrat or Republican. I feel the same way about Donald Trump. I don't give a crap. And, we've got to have a different attitude when dealing with people that are ignorant and decidedly ignorant, willfully ignorant. The prescribing to the ignorance is bliss philosophy. And that is that it's a cop-out. It really is a form of cowardice. And you've got to step up to the plate, and you've got to be willing to carry your fair share of the weight of the cross of humanity. Okay? That's what it comes down to. We're in this thing together. Okay, this is serious, serious stuff. Our paradigm is being manipulated to the nth degree. We have no idea how good it could be if God was in control of our lives, the policies that reign over us, that we all have to adhere to, consent to, comply to some degree in order to get by. And the main one is the monetary policy. Okay, these money masters of misery. They're screwing everything up. Yeah, we could have Houston could have. I mean, duh. I mean, am I the first guy to figure out they could have made an artificial lake or a series of artificial lakes to just drain that water? Any possible 1,000-year flood? I mean, be ready for those things. They happen. We all know that. I mean, they got houses that float over there in the Netherlands. I mean, that's pretty smart. They've got huge, what look like locks to me. I've been through the canals of France. I know what a lock is. What it is, it's just two gates that stop the river temporarily while a boat goes up steps, so that the river, they regulate the speed of the river so it's not going faster than they want. They want to accommodate, water traffic for commerce and just personal enjoyment of the canals. So that's what a lock is. So they stop one gate, and then they get the boat in, the ship in, and then they close the other gate, and then they raise it up, just like going up or down a step is what it's like. But there's a lot of solutions to these problems, but somebody's going to tell you it's about money. It's the same excuse they'd have if I tell you, oh, well, they need to accommodate helicopters with parachutes, duh. Okay. And maybe even something, if they think that's not good enough, then they need something like an emergency engine or some sort. Something, okay? Because I don't like to hear people dying needlessly, okay, in these helicopter crashes, airplane crashes. Look, very few fighter pilots die in their planes because they can eject, okay? So they could put ejection seats in all the passenger planes. Okay, every one of them. And people could say, what are you talking? They'd all get tangled up in the parachutes. No, you do it thoughtfully. Okay, you engineer it. and you do it in sequence so that the people at the back of the plane get out first, give plenty of time between the passengers. Could have emergency rafts, figuring that the likelihood they're going to land in the ocean is pretty good. So the emergency supplies, flares, the whole bit, whatever they need to survive until they can be rescued. But their chances are a hell of a lot better. Even if they get a heart attack, I mean, it's only going to be a couple of people, but most people will be able to handle it, especially if you're trained to know it's pretty shocking being shot out the roof of a plane, but hey, it's a lot better than being stuck in there for a minute or two as the plane's plummeting to the earth. Okay. Cover every inch of 2-lane highway with a barrier so they're preventing all head-on wrecks. Okay, there's a lot of things we could do to save a lot of lives, and somebody's going to tell you, because you've been trained, you'll believe it, that it's because of money. And it's just, oh no, where are you going to get the money? Where are you going to get the money? When, if you read Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, okay, then you will find out, and I've got the volume right here. This is the one to get right here. See this edition? What if my camera, I don't think it's on autofocus. Let me check. It was off automatic focus. Let's try that again. But this is the edition to get. This is the one, fatty. But it's a great book. And, this idea that if you want to consider human beings as commodities, and you say, oh, well, yes, this is the capital. This is what we have as labor. And if you look at it through the lens of the secular world, what we've been trained, that labor, especially unskilled labor, just average, ordinary, everyday labor. I mean, this is labor that digs ditches that you absolutely need. Okay, sure, we have heavy equipment now. That's not the point. But it's simple jobs, historically simple jobs that need to get done in society. They're often tedious. They're laborious, okay, and they're unrewarding, okay, in terms of status. You get none. But the fact is that these are very important jobs. And Adam Smith made no bones about it when he said labor is every nation's single greatest asset. So how are we seeing this thing? Through the lens of the secular world, which has been manipulated, and you've been trained to believe the way that they want you to believe? Or are you going to try to look through it through God's eyes, through the lens of God's eye view, and seeing this earth fundamentally as belonging to all of us, and that we all have a right to share in the inherent resources, the wealth of the nations? And of all those resources we have available to us, it's one another's labor. Okay, that's it. I touched on this idea of volunteering, and how that's, how it looks also noble and wonderful. You're out there volunteering, and we got all these volunteers in Houston, and I'd be one of them. I mean, I get it. You do what you can just to help your fellow man. You can't live with yourself doing it any other way. But there's always somebody. Look at the professional rescuers, search and rescue and all this. I mean, if everybody volunteered, okay, and you didn't need money, you understand, they'd be out of a job. That's the point I'm trying to make here, is that our entire paradigm, our so-called reality, is illogical. It is lacking in any sensibility, okay? It does not make sense, period. And you've been trained to believe it does, and so you believe in it to some degree, enough to comply, enough to cope, to contend with it. And I'm here to tell you that our reality could be so much better, just so much better, so much better, if we weren't born beholden to the money masters